where we can see it and still be safe because we're underneath this roof of the fire department. But it's really not, anything that I've ever experienced, not being from this area, being from a landlocked state, seeing just almost fear of such a big storm like this in person is just really something to be seen. But it seems like we've seen flashes of light, not just only from lightning, but just from power outages off in the distance. So it seems like, especially here in Acadia Parish, there are going to be some power issues that are at least lasting through the night and could perhaps go much longer into the week. We'll see how that goes. Obviously, we're here at the fire hall where they're kind of in standby mode, where they can't obviously get out into conditions like this. So they are waiting for all of this to pass, and then they'll be able to go out and help people as they need it. Guys.
All righty. Thank you, Chris Davis, there in Acadia Parish, covering Hurricane Laura for us in that area. We are in the midst of it at this hour, Jim, and you heard Chris talking about, you think what direction the rain's coming from, and then it changes. We've been hearing lots of differences in wind speed and rainfall overhead here at the studio.
And just within a matter of seconds, just how drastically it could change in a matter of moments. I'm just looking through the KATC comments and in the inbox, and just seeing some of the concern that people have about the conditions that they're seeing right there. Tornadic activity, which Rob is telling us about, that hurricanes will just produce so much of it, and our lights flickering here, just probably like what so many of our viewers are having happen to them right now as well. Let's check in with Matthew Torres. He's over in Abbeville. I believe we have Matthew standing by live with a look at the conditions in Vermilion Parish tonight. Matthew?
Jim, you think, it's quieted down, but don't be mistaken or be fooled by that. It really picks up any second. The wind just really carries that rain throughout here. I just want to keep walking down here. Really, the source of light that we can get is from the courthouse because they have a backup generator. But just down the street, you can see just how dark it's been here. Something that I'm learning is just really what's expected down here in part of Louisiana, where it really is the power outages that's really going to be a huge problem. Now, I have been in touch with the director of the Office of Emergency Preparedness. She just told me that so far she's hearing that 3 transformers have blown out, but the conditions just aren't too good right now to fix that. There's been countless power outages. You can just see right there just the enormity of this wind just pushing us aside. And you just hear the flapping of the flags around here, just giving you an indication, again, of how strong things have been here. But once again, power outages, just a major concern. And just even the street sign, it's just, you can see where it's just swinging back and forth, almost like it's about to be ripped off or pulled out because of just how strong this wind has become. And so we were able to step outside, again, just outside of the Office of Emergency Preparedness here at the courthouse. But seems like we have rescue crews on standby. I know the Sheriff's Department folks there are also on standby, just checking up on calls. Not sure yet if they are really related to this hurricane, but something just really planting ourselves right now. It seems like things are just intensifying as we speak. So with that being said, I'm actually just going to go inside the courthouse. In the meantime, we'll send things back over to you.
Matthew Torres reporting live there in Abbeville. Last check with Rob, we were talking about winds and gusts. Lake Charles had a gust of 71 miles per hour. Cameron had sustained winds of 84 miles per hour and a gust of 110. Want to talk about Lake Charles for a little bit. We had Chris Welty reporting live there. About an hour ago or so, Chris had said it was just too dangerous. He was calling it for us. He was going back inside. He's at L'Auberge, I believe, on the 3rd floor. So they are elevated from the surge that's coming, approaching Lake Charles as we speak right now. And also the winds, when it comes to the winds, they're not in any exterior room. They're going to be inside in an inside room away from any windows, just there staying safe with the crew at L'Auberge. Earlier today, we did hear from Mayor Nick Hunter of Lake Charles expressing fears about this storm unlike any other.
Concerned about the effects of the storm itself while it's passing through. I'm concerned about a 15-plus foot storm surge. Water is heavy. Water is dangerous. I'm concerned about the winds of Hurricane Laura, and then the aftermath. There's going to be a long period of time without power, without water, without wastewater services, And so if we get through this storm without a loss of life in the immediacy of the event, that will be a good thing. However, that doesn't mean this disaster is over for us. We have the aftermath we're going to have to deal with.
It's an ominous sign when the church bells start ringing.
Hopefully a good sign.
Those church bells ringing there as they're doing that interview with Rob Marciano in Lake Charles with the mayor there. You know, Lake Charles is in for it, as we've been talking about, as that eye wall approaches now. Our weather team is getting ready for an update for us. They're getting information right now, but so much changing so quickly. You saw a couple flickers here as Jim and I have been in this split box here at TV3 as the winds and rains have picked up.
Yeah, you might have heard a noise as well. We're not quite sure what that was.
We
It
don't
sounds
know.
like a computer, but Rob is sort of troubleshooting just behind the weather lab. But in the meantime, meteorologist Bradley Benoit is going to be joining us. He's just getting set up real quick to talk about the latest conditions and just even looking at our field crews out there, just how much it's changed in the past few minutes. Each hit, every time we go back to them, time after time, the conditions are just so much worse. And when Rob had mentioned, you know, looking at it on the radar is just so frightening to look at this storm on the radar, and then just to see it in person is just a totally different thing. To feel it in person, I liked how, I think it was Chris who just held his microphone out, listen to that howl.
And you know, we see it on radar, but to know the science behind it, as the meteorologists do, and to know what that means and what it looks like, they tell us, but they've studied conditions like this for multiple storms, and as forecasts get better and precision gets better in forecasting, they know the intensity before even we do. And to see it, you heard Rob just kind of stop and take a deep breath, and knowing what this eye approaching land is going to do to those areas where it will cross over, and those purplish white tops and what they mean, and studying the science in it all. It just, we hear it, but they know it on an entirely different level.
And it's been a long while since we've had a storm of the likes of Rita. I know Rob had that graphic earlier that showed the saltwater intrusion. It was a satellite image that was taken, I think he said 4 days or so after the storm, and you could see it. And you have to wonder, with just how much technology has advanced since 2005, what it's going to look like now, what we're going to be able to see in the days ahead once we move past the active stage of Hurricane Laura and shift into the recovery mode.
And you know, you hear about catastrophic and you hear about catastrophe, and you think you know, but once you see it, as our crews will be out in the aftermath of this. I remember being a reporter during Rita, and seeing it for myself is entirely different than hearing about it. You really don't have words in some situations to describe what you see. You do your best, you talk to people. It's a very emotional time for those who are coming home, and there really isn't much there when you get back.
My watch, my phone, all going off.
I know,
National
everything's
Weather
making
Service,
noises
a
at this
tornado
point.
warning in this area. Again, we're in Lafayette until 1:30 this morning. Let's check in with Chief Meteorologist Rob Perillo back in the weather lab over there. Rob.
Yeah, well, you know, you kind of learn what UPSs are working on your computers and not during the course of a hurricane. So I was replacing some backup power on a couple of our computers, and why not? I'm taking off the jacket. This is jacket off time, right? For sure. Roll up the sleeves, because we're talking about a pretty intense hurricane coming on in, and we just have this new tornado warning for this entire rain band right here, and there's no particular area that we can tell you there's a tornado right now, but we'll take a look at things in just a bit. Here we have the eye of making landfall in Cameron Parish. Very intense winds. We've seen gusts here to 110 at the very least of the few observing stations that we had still online here. Now that eye wall moving in for our friends in Lake Charles, but notice this is going to be also heading up into Jeff Davis Parish as well. Farther to the east we go, very intense thunderstorm activity across Jeff Davis Parish into Acadia Parish. On seeing very intense rain band right now. The same at Forked Island. You got an intense rain band coming through, but then things are going to quiet down. And then we have this very intense rain band in Lafayette. We'll get to that in just a bit. I don't want to forget anybody. Want to give everybody across Acadiana a good look at the radar, because this is it right now. Pretty strong cell here, maybe showing a little rotation west of the Eunice area, maybe over toward Basile. Some strong winds there. Also some strong winds likely again This is not like a typical thunderstorm. A lot of times you'll see in a thunderstorm, you'll see magenta colors. Well, we're not going to see that here. If we do see that here, that means the rainfall rate is in the 5-6 inch range per hour. But typically in a tropical system, you're not going to see the traditional reflectivities that produce the flooding that we normally see in a big thunderstorm in the summertime. And again, very intense rainfall through Lafayette Parish. Let's see if I got to zoom in here. Yeah. We'll show you Lafayette, and again, this is where we have that tornado warning going in effect right now. And let me just back it on up and move this down a little bit right here, and we'll take a look at the velocity data right here and point that out and get that on here and take a look at that. And Bradley, you can take a look as well. And again, the shot, we have something right here that is just to the west of the east of the Crowley area showing up. That looks pretty intense right now. So we'll take a look at that, kind of zoom in right here. Yeah, that looks like something, and we'll zoom in a little bit closer. But again, as quickly as this imaging is coming in, this is already likely north of Highway 367. Even as the Doppler swings around in a minute, moving at 60 miles an hour, you're going to cover, a couple of miles for sure. So this looks like a potential tornado as we get somewhere between Highway 13 out in the open country of beautiful Acadia Parish and into Acadia Parish, north of the Rain area, north of Crowley, over by Hawks, one of our favorite sites. So we'll have to watch that. Very intense weather there, and that we also have to keep an eye on our antenna for the winds out there that impact our broadcasting as well. So here we go. We come back in. We see Lafayette, very intense rainfall across much of the entire parish from the south side of town down toward Milton, Maurice area, then up through Lafayette, and then we're hearing it here in at a KATC. The winds are going to come up shortly with this bulge that's right here. We've been hearing it on the roof. I've been hearing gusts are right around 60, 65, and more intense activity showing some cloud to ground lightning as well. As we get into Iberia Parish, some very heavy rainfall here from Delcombe on eastward through the New Iberia area, and then farther south and east, very intense rainfall. It's been rough near the Lydia area, just north and west of Sippermore Point. Rough weather in Sippermore Point on southward into the Gulf of Mexico as well. So again, we're looking right overhead of the storm, finally making landfall here in Cameron Parish as the storm, still 150 mile per hour winds working its way inland. And again, this is going to be a long drawn out process where we see these tropical rain bands continuing to push on through the overnight hours, through the wee morning hours of our Thursday morning, and then things finally calming down around 7 o'clock in the morning. Showers and storms still lingering into the afternoon, but the worst weather, highest winds, worst weather will be between now and about 6 o'clock in the morning. And this model's been doing a good job. I think we're going to start to see 60, 70 mile an hour gusts more frequently from Opelousas on southward through Abbeville, and then back to the west we go, and that's where we're seeing those big, intense winds of 100 miles an hour or greater in spots anywhere from Jeff Davis, even western Acadia Parish through Jeff Davis Parish. The gusts may not be this high, but this will give you an idea on where we're going to see the most extensive damage with this hurricane as it continues to move inland across southwest Louisiana and then eventually into western Louisiana as the day progresses. And look, still hurricane force gusts 6, 7 o'clock in the morning when the storm is between, say, Fort Polk, DeRidder, and Leesville, crossing I-49 sometime around 8 or 9, 10 o'clock in the morning. Eventually, the winds begin to die down. They'll still be breezy first thing tomorrow morning, but then they'll begin to diminish as we get into tomorrow afternoon. And certainly by this time tomorrow evening, the winds will certainly lighten up, but they'll stay breezy from time to time. Rainfall wise, we see no reason to not to shy away from this model at all. The graph model has been showing us the most rainfall, and these numbers may actually underplay the rainfall that we're going to see. So widespread localized flooding, a distinct possibility over the next 6 to 12 hours. And again, we're going to take this graphic out because we already know all the hazards here, and they all are high impact hazards for a Category 4 storm that is pushing on through into Louisiana at this hour. And again, just looking at it from an angle of incidence, you can see that eye looking quite impressive. Still notice we still have squalls that are coming around on the southern side, and they're building. Your strongest winds and most intense winds are going to be right here in that continuous red. Now that's moving inland and moving into not only Cameron Parish, but beginning to edge into Calcasieu Parish. And again, these outer rain bands, these are the ones that are impossible to predict. And if they don't move a whole lot, somebody's going to get 10 inches of rain in less than 3 hours. So we'll watch to see, hope that this rain band moves on a little bit, but it hasn't moved so much in the last half hour, 45 minutes or so. So in that time, 3 to 4 inches of rain is likely fallen. And again, it's even worse as you go farther to the west, but on top of that, you're seeing tremendous winds. And you could almost see, look at this one area, enhanced area here. This is just a half-hour loop. Look how fast this is going. This is moving at more than 100 miles an hour from the coast inland, whipping around. So very intense winds likely just north of, just south rather, of the Lake Charles area. We'll come on in and show you, get even closer just by the Sweet Lake area and come even closer. This is the cone of silence by the Doppler radar. And remember why I said if you see magenta, that's very intense right here. This right here is likely producing 110, 120, maybe 130 mile an hour wind gusts just west of Highway 27, just north of the Grand Lake area. Kind of open country, but there are a lot of folks that live here along Highway 385 as you're going into the Lake Charles area. So very intense storm here across the board. Let's bring it on out and get back to our home button here. And no, I didn't want to zoom in. I want to zoom back out and take a look at everybody and just do a little storm tracking right now on what sometimes your technology is a little frustrating, but let's get back to the home button. And maybe Bradley can help me out here. Okay, and then hit the tracking button right there. And now we'll see those storm tracks showing up and see what we see here. We got that rotation down toward western Iberia Parish showing up. We have rotation coming in on coastal Vermilion Parish showing up. Again, we're not going to have hail. This is where rain is just super intense, and the Doppler thinks that it's hail. So we'll continue to track that. We don't see any tornado vortex signatures, something that is overt. But again, as we indicated, what we are going to see with these tropical rain bands, you're going to see gustnados. You're going to see these little spins inside. And you might see a more uniform, but when you don't see a uniform rain band like what we're seeing over here back to the west, that means that there is more disruptions and there's more up and down in the winds going on, where the winds will die down, they're letting up, and then the next thing you know, they're gusting back up again. And that's kind of what we're seeing in this outer rain band that's going through New Iberia, moving into Lafayette right now. A lot of chaotic motion, and that's why there's the possibility of tornadoes just about in anywhere. This rain band is also quite intense as we go through the Gaydon area up through Jennings, probably pushing 80 to 90 mile an hour wind gusts in this rain band right here. So you have 120, 130 gusts perhaps. You have 80, 90, maybe pushing 100 gusts here. And then on this rain band, we're more in the 50, 60, 70 mile an hour range. So it's kind of progressive. As you get closer to the storm, your winds just amp up more so in each and every one of those rain bands. So very intense weather moving on through. And here we're hearing this rain band right here. It's moving through Lafayette. Just heard the gusts here at the station. It sounded close to about 60 or 65. So hopefully you don't hear anything more. And this is looking a little bit interesting to me on by Delcom. What we're looking at, a little bit of a curl here, so there is more than likely something spinning right here. So Delcom, Erath, be on the lookout. This is going to be moving northward toward the Milton area and Youngsville. This is going to be an increase in wind speeds, and this is going to be fast on the heels of the rain band that we're seeing right now. Again, these bands are moving at about 60, 70 miles an hour, maybe even a little bit more than that. So quick changes. You're going to see the rain gusting up. We're hearing that right now here at the station. Let's take a look at the velocity at the same time and see if we can see anything showing up. So we're picking up on this velocity right here that's showing up across western Lafayette Parish, and that changed. So there's strong winds here. And again, the Doppler goes back and forth between scans. They do a higher resolution scan, and then it goes off into this, which is closer. And then the longer range scans that we like a little bit more because it covers more of the area has gone away. So we really can't track a whole lot other than there may be something showing up here on Delcom with that right near the Delcom area that looks to be a pretty bad fella right here in that rain band. So pretty tough weather here, and pretty tough as we get down into the coastal portions of Iberia and St. Mary Parish. So storm moving inland. That is the good news. The bad news is we got 6 solid more hours of very intense weather, and the winds will only gradually pick up. You go from Lafayette on southward and eastward, and to the west, the winds gradually increasing as this eye wall goes by us. So the max winds will be until with us, and the greatest potential for damaging winds as this slowly moves on parallel on the same latitude with Lafayette, and then when it starts to make some more poleward motion or more gets farther to the north, then we'll start to see some of the winds abating, but that's going to be 3 or 4 more hours down the road. So peak conditions now till about 6 o'clock in the morning for most of us here in Acadiana.
And a reminder, everybody, as this weather does pick up here in Acadiana, just a reminder that we are on the air as long as we can be. We're also over on our devices. We're funneling this stream over to our KATC app, so if you can download that now, keep that on your phone, your mobile device, so you can stay informed if and when the power goes out.
And also 960 AM is where you can hear us on the radio as well. 960 AM is where you can hear this live broadcast right now, later into the night, into tomorrow. If you have lost power, you can listen to us live at 960 AM over the radio as well. In
many cases, Marcel, our viewers are our eyes and our ears, and that is proving to be the case as well with Hurricane Laura. Let's take a look at some of the viewer-submitted videos and images that we've been getting in throughout the day as Hurricane Laura makes its journey into Louisiana and across Acadiana. One of our viewers, Blake Daigle, sent in this video of wind and rain at the Egan Cajun Haven RV Park, Marcel.
That's right. As you see, some pretty strong rain bands passing through there, strong winds as well. We're not encouraging you to go out and take video, of course, and put yourself in harm's way. This came into us, so we thought we would show you just another area, another perspective of what this storm is doing. This again in the Egan area, taken by a viewer who sent this over to us. He's obviously in a covered space and in a safe area, so don't put yourself out there just for the sake of getting video and possibly hearing your name and seeing your video on over the air, or hearing us talk about you, or on our apps or social media pages as well.
Yeah, just only do so if it's safe.
Absolutely
to do so.
safe. We want to see it, right, but we don't want to see it if you're putting yourself at risk. Right now, in the midst of this storm, as Rob mentioned, we are at the peak, but even later hours and when we're in the stage of aftermath after this storm as well.
I have a few gusts here if you want to hear them.
And Rob has some more information on wind gusts.
Yeah,
Let's head over
got
to Rob.
Some gusts showing up, 89 wind gusts and 74 sustained at that's at Texas Point. More importantly, 76 mile-an-hour gust at Lacassine site, east-northeast of Lacassine in Cameron Parish. 104 wind gusts at the Lake Charles Regional Airport. So those gusts are coming up, man. 127 measured at Calcasieu Pass, which is right here. Again, if we're hitting 100 mile-an-hour winds, 104 gusts in Lake Charles, and the eye wall isn't there yet. The gusts are only going to get worse, and I can't believe I'm reading these, and that center of the storm is not there yet. So very intense here with respect to this storm as it moves. Let me just back up the Doppler right now. That gust of 127 at Calcasieu Pass, that was at 12:24 a.m., so that was about a half hour ago. That's right over here. That's on the backside of the storm. That means you have a very well-developed hurricane, and that gust to at Lake Charles Regional Airport, that was at 12:40, so that is just 20 minutes ago. Let me move this over right here. So 20 minutes ago, this is right here. So let's see what produced that. That's right here. They haven't seen the highest winds yet in Lake Charles. So gusts to 104, that's just the beginning. I would say gusts to 120, 130 are going to be possible here. This part of the eye wall is looking very, very intense. So look out, our friends in Lake Charles. It's going to get worse in a very short period of time.
We want to report at last check, Chris Welty and Blake Blanchard, our crew there in Lake Charles, they are safe in their hotel. They are in an interior area of the hotel, I believe, over at L'Auberge, Marcel.
Yeah, I just texted Chris not long ago, as a matter of fact, just to tell him to hang in there, and he said they're doing okay, so they are fine. They're in for the night. Right now, thousands of Louisiana residents, without a doubt, are without power.
Yeah, Andrew Clay joining us live in Lafayette with the latest numbers on outages this morning. Andrew.
Hey guys, we are starting to hear the first claps of thunder outside the KATC studio as this storm continues to intensify. I'm just trying to keep the mic closer to my mouth so I don't have to yell so much. But you can just hear the storm above me. I mean, it's just intense. We are lucky to be protected here by a concrete wall and a roof right now, so we don't have to be out in the storm. But the rain just continues to come down, and really, as I've been standing here watching the storm, I think the intensity of the rain has been what's impressed me most about this storm. Yes, the wind has picked up. Yes, there is more wind, and it is gustier, and it is more consistently breezy. But the sheer volume of water falling right now here at the KATC studio is very impressive. It's a lot of rain coming down, and I know we saw some forecast models earlier in the night that's kind of was more friendly to Lafayette, but Rob pointed out that those numbers could very quickly change just depending where you live. And one of those spots is this KATC studio where the rain just continues to come down in buckets. And as I said earlier, raining cats and dogs, what your kids might say. This is what that looks like as the rain continues to be intense, and it's coming down on our roof. And just listen to it. I know that we've already done this a few times, but just listen to this rain. It's just immense water just coming down very quickly. Again, the wind is a factor, but right now here at the studio, it is all about the volume of water and the sheer amount of rain coming down right now. So again, remember, just because you're not in a coastal parish or you're not out west closer to the storm does not mean you're out of the woods, and things continue to stay dangerous in any part of this storm right now, and flooding is going to be an issue in many areas. So it's important to just stay safe and take this storm seriously as it continues to roll through overnight. For KATC, I'm Andrew Clay.
All right, Andrew Clay there reporting on the conditions here in Lafayette. Next, we're going to head out to Lake Charles with the conditions getting worse out there. Chris Welty joining us live from inside his hotel room, I understand, tonight. Chris, how was everything? What are you hearing? What are you seeing?
Here at the L'Auberge Hotel. Hey Jim, we're back here in our hotel room at the L'Auberge Hotel, and the power went out about 5-10 minutes ago. I'm actually using my cell phone battery or my cell phone light, I should say. But hold up, let me just turn that off just for a second, just so you can see how dark it is here. And we got the computer open as well. But yeah, it's pitch black here at the hotel. We did hear on the loudspeaker for us to shelter in place. This is our safe spot. But look, I want to show you down the hallway a little bit as well. And this is the situation we're in right now at the L'Auberge Hotel. We're trying to conserve battery as much as possible, I should say. But we do see the emergency exit signs illuminated here at the hotel. Pretty intense situation, though. And as we were listening to Rob a little bit earlier, we were saying that just about 1:30 or so, that's when we can really expect things to intensify here. Now, we did hear the hotel staff come over the loudspeaker, and they told us that they're working to get the backup generator running, but they did warn us earlier that this was a strong possibility that the power would go out here at the hotel. I'm sorry, I just paused for a second. It sounded like something might have been clicking on, but that might just be the wind. Now, earlier when we were coming back inside the hotel from doing our live shots earlier, we ended up having to take the stairs because the elevators were shut down at that point. Earlier this evening, probably about 5 or maybe 7:30 or so, give or take, Blake, our photojournalist Blake, his hotel room lost power, but mine was across the hall and I still had power, so Blake decided to come over to my side and shelter in place as well. And now we're just riding this out together. The station, they did hook us up with a satellite phone, so just in case the situation does get much worse over here, we'll be able to still communicate for a little bit, but right now, we're just sheltering in place, riding out the storm as much as possible. We are still trying to send in some video, but it is a challenge, though, right now to send in footage right now just because of the situation that we're in. So right now, we're just going to shelter in place, but this is a situation right now that we're facing here at L'Auberge. Power is out. The power is still working over at the Golden Nugget. We did notice that, but they're working to get the backup generator running here in Lake Charles, but we're expecting conditions to continue to deteriorate. Live in Lake Charles, Chris Welty, KATC TV3.
Chris, if you can still hear us, go ahead, get you some rest. We will check in with you tomorrow. And yes, Rob did mention that the most severe band of this storm at this point will be approaching the area in just about 20 minutes. So you guys hang in there, be safe, and we'll hear from you when we can.
Yeah, it's just getting started there in Lake Charles. Let's head back to Lafayette now. Katie Easter joins us live near the Vermilion River, I understand. I believe the Pinhook Bridge. Katie, what are you seeing?
Well, right off of right off of Pinhook here, the Vermilion River is actually slowly rising really quickly over here. It hasn't yet reached land or the little river wall over here, but you can tell it's definitely rising. And now I just want to talk about the drive over here because it is important that you are not out driving. We did see multiple cars out on our way back over here, and there's really no reason to be driving at this time. There's branches that we are starting to see fall down because, you know, we keep getting those strong gusts of winds. And I think that's what's mostly important is you don't want to be out here right now with these limbs coming down like that. Of course, we were driving through town, so we didn't see too much damage at this time, but there is still damage out here. And that is why it is so important, especially with these winds, to stay indoors. Do not come driving out here. And then, you know, it's dark, so you can't really tell. Where I'm standing right now is actually several inches, and this is just in a parking lot. But even on the way over here, when you're driving through, you can definitely tell you're driving through some pretty deep puddles there. So you definitely don't want to be driving right now because you don't know what you're actually driving through. Live in Lafayette, Katie Easter, KATC TV3.
All right, Katie Easter there near the banks of the Vermilion River. The river slowly coming up, expected to be much higher just within just a few hours of this rainfall out there.
That's right. We want to remind you, if you still have power at this point, what to do once you lose it, if you lose it. Of course, you can find us all over the place at this point. If you have a smart TV, you can access our newscast on Android, Apple TV, Fire Stick, Roku, or just search KATC in the App Store. You see it there. We're also on KATC.com and our social media pages as well. And
also just tune in on the radio as well, 960 AM. They are simulcasting the KATC wall-to-wall coverage as Hurricane Laura has now made landfall. It became official now, the Associated Press now putting it out there that the storm has made landfall, something we've been telling you about for about an hour or so now. And the conditions there in Cameron, Calcasieu Parish, some of the worst conditions those areas have ever seen. We've heard from Chris Welty reporting live from Lake Charles inside one of the hotels there. Sheltering in place at this point. It's just way too dangerous to even go outside. I got a little nervous, Marcel, when he was opening the hotel door, but apparently they're in an interior room there on the 3rd floor, staying high enough with all that storm surge that's on its way.
Yeah, he called it their safe place, so we're sure we've scoped it out. Our management teams have made sure that they were in a place where they would remain safe. You heard him mention that he had a satellite phone in case they were to lose battery. And so he has equipment with him and backups, just so we can keep in touch with them throughout this process, and we will hear from them again when we can. Meanwhile, here we are at 1:12 in the morning. It's very rare that we can say morning, normally with our work shifts, but we're 1:12 in the morning on this Thursday morning. Rob, let's go ahead and bring it back over to you. Landfall officially has happened with Hurricane Laura. What are conditions at this point?
Yeah, well, they're coming in, and by the way, 1 o'clock in the morning, us working in the weather lab, that's not unusual. So we got to get you a little bit more weather shifts so
I'm
you
good,
can get
I
practice.
promise.
But here we go as we take a look at what's going on, and two areas of primary concern. One, the core of the storm that's moving inland, and these two other rain bands that are being very persistent, producing very heavy rainfall. And I am getting a little bit more fearful that we're going to perhaps see some major flooding developing in New Iberia, Lafayette, these two communities, seeing repeated rain bands, the training cells over the same areas. So this is going to be a rough go of it. Again, we see the eye wall making landfall, and we knew that. We call that. What did the AP officially call that? What time was that, Jim? Do you remember?
I don't see.
I was calling it
time.
at 11:50, but news.
Let me see. I just have it up right now. They're saying 109 landfall near Cameron, Louisiana.
Okay, I don't know if the AP's officially allowed to call it. I think a meteorologist needs to call it.
National Hurricane Center.
Okay, yeah,
near
with that
Cameron.
that 1 a.m. bulletin that came in. So, Bradley, I don't know if you could call up that 1 a.m. I don't have the static on the 1 a.m. Bulletin. Yeah, I could just call it up on the computer system.
Near Cameron has a Category 4, winds at 150 miles per hour with a minimum pressure of 938.
Okay, minimum pressure at 938 at landfall. So I'm just going to put that in here so we can see it graphically, put it back in the show, because after a while, you just don't need to have the actual track of the system. But let's go ahead and put that up here, and we'll show it to you. So we got the latest on it, and this is where it is as of 1 a.m. So 1 a.m. making landfall, gusts to 185. That's higher than it was earlier, huh?
175 was earlier.
Oh my goodness! So very intense, and the gust factor may be up primarily because of the storm now interacting with the friction of land, and that is what produces more violent gusts. So, man, a gust to 185. I hope we don't realize that or see that anywhere. But that is, that's an EF3, EF4 tornado. And while it's a Category 4 storm, which is a huge tornado, this is a huge tornado right here that is swirling around here in Cameron Parish, so making landfall for sure. Again, some of these very heavy rain bands now working their way into the Lake Charles area. The winds in Lake Charles, our friends that are still watching us out there, it's going to be coming up big time in the next 10 to 15 minutes. And again, we can see some of those more intense rain bands also through eastern Cameron Parish as well. Heavy duty rains as we get into Jeff Davis Parish. We have this one rain band area that has been quite persistent between Gaydon and Jennings. And then we have another rain band area that's been moving through Lafayette and New Iberia. And it looks like we have one Doppler radar that has gone down. So I'm going to have to readjust this coming up, but heavy rains now and the gusty winds working their way up to the north in Ville Platte, and then also these very heavy rains as we get into portions of Iberia and St. Mary Parish. So I'm going to have to take out some of the Doppler radars. Basically what I have here is 5 Doppler radars plotting up, which makes the computer complain, but it's just a computer. But again, some very heavy rainfall. Remember, we were talking about this one band right here. Well, that hasn't moved. That's somebody's Doppler radar that has stopped working, and my guess it might be the Lake Charles Doppler radar. We'll see. And then we go farther to the south and east, and we see those intense rains as well. Satellite imagery, that is still working. You can see landfall and the eye just about all the way into Cameron Parish at this hour. So finally getting this in, but look at that enhanced convection. That's what's working its way in toward Lake Charles right now as we speak. And as we indicated, Category 4 storm, 185-mile-an-hour mile-per-hour gusts, so hopefully we don't realize that or see that. But notice the enhancement going all the way back through the Galveston Bay area, east toward the Baytown area as we get east of the downtown Houston area. So rough weather likely for our friends over in Port Arthur, the Beaumont area, Orange, Vidor, Texas as well. Still expected to be a Category 2 storm at 7 o'clock in the morning, and then weakening more rapidly as the storm gains more latitude and moves further inland. So again, we're showing you what we expect. This model has been doing a great job in these persistent rain bands. They're going to eventually move out, but it's going to be several hours more. So there is going to be widespread flooding across a good part of the area. If you have a job that you have to report to tomorrow morning, tell them Perillo says you are excused unless you are emergency personnel, and then we may need some boats to get folks around. But unfortunately, there's going to be more widespread flooding, and it is coming down in buckets here at the station as well. And we're getting reports of 5-6 inches of rain already, and I think we're even behind the curve on that. I think we're already seeing in some spots 6 or 7 inches of rain based on the way it's been going over the last couple of hours. And again, here in Lafayette, it's been raining at about 2 to 3, 4 inches of rain per hour, and that has been going on for the last 2 hours. So rainfall totals that we've been talking about, we're going to easily achieve that. Picking up these wind gusts, they're going to continue to increase as the storm bypasses us and gets on the same parallel with us at about 3 o'clock in the morning, and the winds are only going to get stronger, and we're going to see those gusts in the 80-90 mile per hour range. Acadia Parish, Jeff Davis Parish, Evangeline Parish, Allen Parish on northward. So a rough night ahead, and then finally settling down as we get closer to tomorrow morning, and then the midday hours, those winds are really beginning to die down, but some lingering tropical showers will keep the winds gusting. But the main threats overnight tonight and through daybreak tomorrow. And again, the rainfall estimates, I think we're getting close to this in some spots already. So 5 to 10 inches, up to 15 inches of rain, certainly a possibility with this storm as it pushes on through. And guys, I'm going to go adjust the Doppler radar so we have some cleaner looks at the Doppler, and we'll be back on air as soon as you need or if conditions warrant.
Well, you know where to find you, Rob. Not going anywhere.
Just over there.
Right
That's
over
right.
There. Yeah, right within earshot too, which is nice. That's nice. Okay.
Right.
Thanks, Rob. We want to take a look outside right now, Marcel. I believe we have a traffic camera to
We
show
do.
everybody.
A traffic camera in Dusau along I-10 there. As you see, there's that rain we're talking about and wind that's been moving through at very high rates as the wind continues to increase. This is the DOTD traffic cam at Dusau along I-10. Thank goodness, I-10 clear. We appreciate that for everyone who stayed off of the roadways. We know I-10 was closed earlier this evening from the basin to just west of the state line. So there's a look at what's happening outdoors in the Dusau area right now.
Look at that, one car.
Hopefully it's a first responder.
Hopefully so. We'll give them the benefit of the doubt, but
That's
I would
right.
not want to be driving in those conditions right now. Meanwhile, the Louisiana State Urban Search and Rescue Task Force has been deployed. The crew, managed by the State Fire Marshal's office, is called by local authorities when there's a potential need in a local area. Their resources can help even when someone's trapped in a building. Now, that concept of this search and rescue task force started right here before Hurricane Katrina and was adopted by the state in 2008. Right now, hundreds of people are trained here in Louisiana for urban search and rescue operations.
We're predicting catastrophic building damage. I mean, a lot of buildings will be put to the ground and will be unrecognizable. A lot of buildings will be damaged so bad that you can't just walk in. And in fact, walking into those buildings are dangerous. So our technicians are trained to not only shore buildings up from collapse, but go into these buildings in a safe manner and extract people who might be trapped, extract people who need emergent medical care.
Well, here we are with video from Avery Island. That's what you're looking at there. Viewers submitted this video. As you see, it's from earlier today when there was still some sunlight, daylight I should call it, not sunlight, but that's Avery Island in Iberia Parish. The bridge is at the entrance of the Tabasco factory and museum. In the video, you can see the water levels are starting to rise across Avery Island. Rob, do you need to get in really quick? Are you good?
I'm good.
Okay. Well, another viewer, Blake Daigle, we showed you earlier, sent us wind and rain from Egan Cajun Haven RV Park. Blake Daigle sending that in to us. In this video, you see rain bands passing through and some strong winds happening.
word that always comes to mind whenever there's a tragedy, of whether it's a natural disaster or something else, you know, is community. Here in Acadiana, it's just the way. And when many of you tonight are asking us on Facebook already and Twitter, how can I volunteer? How can I help out once Hurricane Laura has passed? Well, you can go to volunteerlouisiana.gov. On their site, you can find ways to volunteer safely. I spoke with Lieutenant Governor Billy Nungesser a little bit earlier tonight, and he said that they're already having interest in volunteer efforts to help coordinate recovery operations and rescue operations across the state once the storm has passed. You can also search for organizations that will need help, and you can also find ways to donate financially. You can follow Volunteer Louisiana on Facebook and Twitter for updates on ways you can help your community following Hurricane Laura. And
that's one, not to interrupt you, that's one of the most beautiful things about where we live, that even as the storm is just officially making landfall, people are already saying, you know, how can I help out? Don't worry, there'll be lots of work to do in so many areas, in so many organizations looking for volunteers on a normal basis. That will only be intensified as we get through this storm and in the days and the weeks to follow as cleanup happens along coastal Louisiana and areas in the southwestern portions of this state. You will be able to help out and help your neighbors right now. Just take care of yourselves. There will be opportunities.
We're going to have so many people displaced by this storm, and so many of their neighbors are going to be willing to help. We're also going to have so many people coming to Louisiana to help out in the recovery of this storm. And Marcel, it kind of brings to mind, you know, we've been seeing some unfamiliar faces on KATC tonight because we do have some of our reporters from our sister stations from across the country helping out. Do you remember that promo last year? We had Sarah Hollenbeck from Tampa. I believe she was in Iberia Parish doing a live shot talking to a guy, and what did he say when he rolled down the window?
He was
hey,
so unsure.
You hungry?
Yeah, he was like, you want to eat? You know, he was ready.
Yeah.
And even when they came in, we saw them from a distance first. Not very many people are in and out of this building, but we did see one of the crews, Matthew, and his photographer come in a minute ago, and it was like, hey, so nice to see you. And they talked about the warm welcome they have been receiving in Vermilion Parish, and it's just what we do. You know, they're here to help out. Here it is, you know, in the midst of the storm coverage, we have people already here. We know there's so many power crews and just crews after crews. We mentioned earlier one of the electric companies mentioning there were crews here from 20 states just on standby, waiting to help. And this is what we do for them as well. You know, this is something not only we deal with, but neighboring states along the Gulf Coast and even up the East Coast as well deal with this at this time of year. And people are on standby willing to lend a hand that we are going to need here in South Louisiana.
Yeah, I think it's why South Louisiana, Acadiana leaves a lasting impression on so many who do visit. Getting back to our storm coverage, you know, Governor Edwards today did address the seriousness of this storm and the potential damage and catastrophic hurt that Hurricane Laura will be bringing to Louisiana. The governor says Laura is unlike any storm that this state has seen.
This is a very serious storm. In the 5 years I've been governor, I don't believe I've had a press conference where it was my intention to convey the sense of urgency that I am trying to convey right now. So if for some reason I've not done that adequately, I apologize, but I'm asking people right now to pay attention to this storm, to get out of harm's way if there's an evacuation order in place, whether it's mandatory or voluntary, and understand our state hasn't seen a storm surge like this in many, many decades. We haven't seen wind speeds like we're going to experience in a very, very long time as well.
Governor Edwards also mentioning in that news conference the entire Louisiana National Guard has been activated for the first time in several years, adhering to the fact that this is a storm like we have not seen before. Again, the entire Louisiana National Guard. Lafayette Consolidated Government expected to hold a very early morning news conference. You see there it's scheduled between 4:15 and 4:30 in the morning to provide more details on how Lafayette Parish is doing in the midst of the storm. The next briefing will be at the Emergency Operations Center. Following that briefing, Mayor President Josh Guillory is planning to give another update around 8 or 9 o'clock tomorrow morning as well. So 2 news conferences scheduled from LCG within 4 hours of each other as the morning continues to happen. Now moving on now, here's a look in St. Martin Parish where a tree has blown down and blocked both lanes of the Terrence Highway. A crew was sent to clear the road. That tree has now been removed, but it's something we know it's going to happen. Down limbs, entire trees going down with winds like this, as we're seeing as the storm comes in landfall makes landfall. It's just one example of the strong winds that Laura is bringing into our area. Vermilion Parish preparing for major flooding as Laura's surge push inland. Vermilion Parish, one of the areas we know from the past, from Hurricane Rita, that was inundated with water, and it looks like that's going to happen again.
Yeah, let's head out live now to Vermilion Parish. Matthew Torres has been in Abbeville all night. He's keeping safe there over at the courthouse, the Vermilion Parish courthouse there. Let's check in with him now. Here we are, 1:30. Matthew, how are conditions?
Yeah, so now we're just feeling the strength of the wind here. We just went on the other side of the courthouse, which has been a very eerie sight, especially knowing just how completely blacked out it's been here. We do feel that rain once again coming down here, but here we have all the power outages and now feeling the strength of the wind. I actually did get new numbers from the OEP director saying close to 20% of this parish now without power. That's about 4,700 customers. And just to give it to a little bit of context, there are close to 23,450 customers throughout this parish. And so a good 20% of that parish, again, without power. And you can see it here as an example because of that. And so as we've been walking around here, it's really, I keep saying this time and time again, it's just really been the law enforcement, because I think they're just really waiting and prepared to rescue anyone that is needed. Now, I know the National Guard was mentioned earlier. This week, the National Guard was actually out at Abbeville High School, where they have more than 20 high water rescue vehicles, 6 boats, and more than 100 soldiers ready and on standby. And so hopefully later today, if they are doing some work, I know one of the captain there says he might be willing to let us ride along with them during that. But in the meantime, it's really just handling all of the wind and all of the rain. Wow, that was just intense. Just within that split second, it just coming down here. Again, we're just outside of the courthouse, that's where we've been staying and just riding out the storm. Really safe and secure in the second floor of that courthouse. But just here at the corner, once again, just you can't really see down the road. Just what makes this even more eerie, and just to wait to see what it will look like as soon as the sun comes up. It's a sight that certainly for me would be new, knowing this personally has been my first time covering a hurricane, and it's just being doused now with water, and so this has been kind of on and off. But here now, it seems like out of all the hours we've been here, this is one of the more intense conditions that we are experiencing. Back to you.
Alrighty, thank you, Matthew. Rob just telling us they're doing a reboot of the computer system over there in the weather lab. Rob just telling us that there's a gust of 128 miles per hour in Lake Charles, 128 mile per hour wind gust happening in Lake Charles at this point. Again, the weather team rebooting their computers just to make sure we have all that we need when we need it. Fresh data and observations coming in from there. In preparations for recovery efforts, Customs and Border Protection sent air crews into the Gulf Coast, I should say, here in Louisiana. 2 Black Hawk helicopter crews arrived in the state. Both are rigged with hoist cables that can be used by crew members to transport any resources should we need some resources flown in. There are those helicopters right there, those Black Hawks coming into Louisiana, just on standby in the event that we need them.
And this is really a statewide effort, and it is a storm that is impacting the entire state, just certain parts worse than the others. Take a look in Lafourche Parish earlier today. They weren't forecasted to see the worst parts of it, but look at that roadway just inundated with water coming in to the road. You can see the power lines on the left side of your screen. Otherwise, maybe you could see the lanes in the middle, but otherwise you would just think that was just kind of part of a river.
And you just said a very interesting point, Jim, that this is an entire state effort.
Mm-hmm.
I have some family members that live in the Shreveport area, and they're preparing for Cat 1 hurricane conditions, maybe 2. And normally when you get that far north in the state, yeah, you think, oh, we'll be fine. We'll get some wind and some rain, but with Laura, she's going to maintain some intensity well into Sinla and up into northern parts of the state. So they are bracing for a hurricane essentially as well in areas we don't often hear them dealing with hurricane conditions, but in this case they indeed will be.
Yeah, absolutely. Here we are, everybody, 1:30 Thursday morning. It is August 28th, right? Yeah, 27th, yeah. Pardon me. 1:30 in the morning, days. August 27th. It's been a long shift for us, everybody, but Hurricane Laura has made landfall, just catastrophic damage on its way, pushing forward into Cameron and Calcasieu Parish throughout the night tonight. We have been broadcasting live over the air, and we will continue to do so as long as we can. We've had a few flickers here at the station. I don't know if you've noticed at home, but we are dealing as well with a little clicking noise behind me. We've got a bucket set up behind me because we have our first roof leak of Hurricane Laura. But Marcelo, I'm noticing, I'm hearing the rain, I'm hearing the wind, and then it gets calm.
Yeah, that's one of the things when you're dealing with a storm and these bands. I don't want to sound like a meteorologist, but we've heard them say it time and time again with these strong bands that come in, and our reporters out in the field, they say 1 minute it's calm, and then the next minute intense winds and intense rains, and that's exactly what we're hearing overhead. We imagine that so many of you across Acadiana are hearing the same thing as Laura continues to push inland. Rob said 128-mile-an-hour gust in Lake Charles as of just a few minutes ago. He mentioned that, and so the outer bands that we're hearing, they come in quickly. They are intense for a moment, then they go away, but that doesn't mean you're in the clear yet. We're expecting to see effects from this storm well into the morning hours tomorrow as those outer rain bands affect a majority of Acadiana. Again, the weather team, we know you haven't seen them in a minute. They're rebooting and gathering new information for us. And Daniel Phillips is awake, and he has entered the weather lab, and he's getting a briefing over there. I think he's awake. Waking. Did you sleep?
A little, yeah.
He slept a little. You know, the meteorologists don't tend to sleep much.
He slept here at the station.
Yeah, we saw him earlier in the break room. We were all masked up and everything, and Daniel said at least try and sleep here. He was going to fight it out at home, but changed his mind and came on over to TV3.
Not worth that drive-in right now, especially. That's for sure. I know we've been rebooting some computers as well, but one thing I've always thought is really interesting is talking to Rob Marcel about just the winds and everything. And I remember last year during Barry, we heard a noise, and I was startled by it. And Rob said, wind gust, estimated maybe 40 miles per hour or whatever, and then looked at the gusts later and was like, bingo.
Yeah, he did it a couple times tonight as he was on the wall and here in the weather lab. And then, oh, that's about 60 or 65 here in Lafayette. And sure enough, he indeed was right. It was right between that. When you've done this for so long and covered so many storms and studied tropical weather specifically, you kind of hear it and you know it. And that's why, we put our trust into our weather team and their systems to keep us informed when things get to this intensity. In this case, something we've never seen before here in certain parts of South Louisiana.
Absolutely. Let's take a live look outside. I believe we have a look outside the station, if I'm not mistaken.
That's the gas station
we're
across
on
the street.
Erast Landry. So this is in the KATC parking lot looking across Erast Landry. There is a gas station there. I know it's dark. Can't really see a whole lot. But we do see that there is power across the street at the gas station. And then as you look at the lights, that's where you're really going to be seeing the storm moving through. Looking at the lights, you can see that rain and wind just moving through, and especially across the street too. See how the rain is just interacting with the canopy of the gas station there.
We've talked to, over the phone, lots of officials from across the state and here in Acadiana as well. Lieutenant Governor Billy Nungesser. We've talked to some mayors. We've talked to some OEP folks, specifically with the Jeff Davis Parish system there. We talked to someone there who told us what they were seeing was that there weren't that many people left, and that's exactly what they wanted to see as Laura intensified before making landfall off of the coast. And that's a good sign, Jim. We talk about the bad of the storm so often, but the good thing is that people have listened, because it's beyond that point now, but have listened. And there are people who are riding out the storm. We talked to some shrimpers and some fishermen who said, this is what we do. We're staying with our boats down there in Vermilion Parish, and we hope that they are safe. We do. We want them to be safe, whether they've chosen to ride it out or go to higher ground.
Yeah, what I was thinking about earlier when we heard that warning from Vermilion Parish Sheriff Mike Couvion, just stressing the importance of people following these orders, because it really is turning into a life or death situation in many cases. You know, going back, you got to remember we're in the midst of a pandemic. We have a healthcare system that's already stressed. First responders are going to be having to take precautions. Obviously, life and limb comes first, but if possible, they're going to be taking precautions for their own health and for the health of potential patients. But at the end of the day, our healthcare system is really stressed right now. First responders are stressed with the pandemic. It's just not worth putting them through that.
It's so hard. It's a double-edged sword. You know, so talking to so many people, it's like, can we get a break? You know, here we are in the midst of this pandemic, and now we're faced with this. And one thing about who we are and where we live, yes, our medical system is stressed, and we hope that people left so that they won't be stressing the system even more. But we do know that this is what we live with, and we are a resilient people, and we will rebound, not to be cliche to KATC these days, but we know that that's going to happen. It's going to take time. We hope, and it is our prayer, that people are doing what they need to do to take care of themselves and packing and getting ready to go. We kept saying, make sure you bring your mask and any sanitizers that you have, bring those with you wherever you're going. You know, it's a lot to deal with. You have a lot to think about when you're dealing with a storm on normal circumstances, and then you add in this pandemic, this health pandemic, and so many people would normally be with family and friends or group up in one place, and you really can't do that as well unless, you know, if you, considering your exposure, you know, whereas the grandparents may come over and stay with the son or daughter and grandkids, that might not be happening right now because, you know, they are a population that's dealing with COVID-19. So just another level of intensity in dealing with a very fragile situation and a fragile medical system, as you mentioned. You know, hats off to everyone who has been battling COVID-19 on the front lines, whether it's the grocery store clerk or the doctors and nurses in hospitals every day. And here you are dealing with a storm just like the rest of us, and some more weary days ahead as we continue to live through this and get through this.
And Laura, putting Louisiana on the national map. Once again, a lot of national coverage will be happening with this storm tonight. ABC's Elwin Lopez is checking in from Baton Rouge with conditions across the state.
The time to get out of Laura's path is now over.
The rain has started to come down pretty fiercely, and this is just the beginning.
Storm surge alerts along the Gulf Coast extends for over 400 miles.
We're bracing for a challenge after we see this extremely destructive storm come through.
In Louisiana, the entire National Guard on alert and activated. Officials warning staying put could prove deadly.
And if you think you're safe because you made it through Rita in southwest Louisiana, understand this storm is going to be more powerful.
Laura barreling ashore in the middle of a pandemic in the same areas where there were more than 300,000 cases of COVID-19.
Don't want to be in a shelter, don't want to be infected, don't want to infect anybody.
In places under mandatory evacuations, large shelters could see limited capacity due to the coronavirus.
We have to do social distancing. Everyone has to have a mask. We're doing temperature checks. We're doing hand sanitizer when you come in the door. And then we have everybody spaced out. So that has really changed the whole focus of the way we've done things.
Officials in Lake Charles, Louisiana worried not enough people got out in time.
I'm going to be honest, I am concerned that we didn't have the evacuation numbers that we probably should have.
Here in Baton Rouge, we are also seeing the effects of Hurricane Laura, strong winds, heavy rains. Officials say they are concerned about flooding as well as the possibility of tornadoes. In Baton Rouge, Elwin Lopez, ABC News.
And let's check in now on the conditions once again here in Lafayette, not too far away, just outside our back door.
Yeah, Andrew Clay standing by for us live. Andrew.
Hey guys, one more report here from outside the KATC studio where the rain just continues to fall. And once again, I feel a little bit like a broken record, but the rain has not let up, not for really 1 second here. Over the last 2 hours or so, just a heavy, constant downpour, and it's getting heavier. I mean, we were only getting a little bit of rain over here. I don't know if you can see this corner of our awning. Only a little bit of rain over here at the beginning of the night. And I say beginning, I mean about 2 hours ago. Now we got rain the whole way across. We have water coming in off our driveway, kind of right up to our building. I don't want to say it's flooding because it's not quite flooding. It's just water running away from the building, but it is now running now down near our feet and now over to the side of our building, over to where we have a coulee. The rain just continue coming down. The wind has been kind of constant most of the night. It's blowing, it's gusty, but it's kind of just leveled off a little bit. We haven't seen it continue to pick up. The rain, on the other hand, has. It continues to get stronger and stronger as this evening has gone by. And again, as we've said over and over again, just because you're not on a coastal parish does not mean you're out of harm's way. And they continue taking this storm seriously, as rain and flooding is going to continue to play a role in the storm. We've seen Katy Eastern in downtown Lafayette, where there is some ponding and some minor flooding so far tonight. The rain just continuing to pound Lafayette, particularly here in our studio. If you're seeing something else, if you're seeing different rain or different wind, let us know about it. Share it to our Facebook, share it to our Twitters. We want to see your footage. We want to see how the storm is progressing where you live. I don't know if you can hear that wind. That's about as much as we've seen all night long right there. We are fortunate where we're standing to be protected by a wall, protected by a roof. I don't have to be out quite in that, but that is peak storm. That is peak storm. We have not seen any worse than that all night long. That storm is roaring, folks. That's some serious wind and some serious rain. The worst we've seen it at all. Again, we want to see your pictures. We want to see your videos. Send them to our social media page, our Facebook, our Twitter. We want to see it all so we can share it with those who are also out there covering this storm. For KATC, I'm Andrew Clay.
Alrighty, thank you, Andrew. Well, that's here in Lafayette, and we have a crew in Acadia Parish standing by as well.
Yeah, let's check in now. Chris Davis has been with the Rain Volunteer Fire Department out there. Chris, what's going on?
Well, you know, much like with Andrew's situation, photojournalist Dan Blaumel and I have been standing out here for a while now, and you'll think that, you know, for a moment, maybe, you know, the wind is cut down for a little bit, or maybe we've been through the worst of it, and then a giant gust will come through and almost, you know, kind of make you take a step to the side because it's just that strong, and that's what we keep seeing. And just the same thing with rain. You'll think that a lot of the rain is done, and then it'll, you know, just continue to pour and pour even, you know, worse than you thought initially. So, you know, we're continuing to see examples of that as we continue to move along throughout the evening. Almost on cue, like we planned it, this rain has been the most we've seen in the last 2 hours just as we've been on the air here with you. It's circling, it's you know, splashing into our faces. It's coming back around the roof that we're under here as well, and just starting to really soak us. We've been lucky so far tonight to be kind of under this lip and not just gotten the pounding that some of our other reporters have gotten out in the field. But this rain has really picked up to making it, you know, where anybody that's outside is going to get soaked. I want to point us, I don't know how well you'll be able to see it in the dark, but if you look across the way, we've got a fence here behind the volunteer fire department. I think this is just the gate, but it has obviously come unlatched, you know, but I know for a fact that it was firmly latched when we began the night. So that kind of gives you an example of just how strong the winds have been. We had a really kind of other, just unique moment. I was sitting inside the fire hall just a little bit ago, and there's actually an alarm that came off, and normally in a fire hall you would see people rushing to the engines and trying to go out on the call, but they had to have a conversation about whether they could actually go out in it. And that's the kind of situation we find here in this hurricane. It's and only one you would find in a hurricane, when people might need help for some reason, but they can't get out in it because the conditions are just as dangerous for the first responders as they are for people that may need help. So that's really the scary part of this storm, and scary for people that have chosen to stay put in all of this is, you know, you really through a stretch of time are kind of at the mercy of Mother Nature, and you can see just how impressive but also terrifying that can be with these conditions out here. And you know, once again, to kind of recap what we said before, you know, just when you think you may have gone through the worst of it, you can see another really strong blast come through with lots of rain, lots of wind, and it can make all the difference. Guys?
It surely can. Lots of rain, lots of wind. In a moment, 1 minute calm, the next minute not so much. That's exactly how this is going to go for the next several hours.
Listen, just like right now.
It's calm. We don't hear anything
Calm.
here at the studio.
We're not hearing anything, but just a minute ago, such strong wind and rain. Rob Perillo, you were outside. I know your curiosity got the best of you. You had to go out and check it out for yourself. What'd you think?
Well, I'll tell you this. I'm looking forward to getting off shift so I can go and take a look a little bit more. My retirement fantasy is just to be in the backyard watching this with maybe a cold one in my hand, but that is still a decade away at the very least.
Yeah, we're not letting you go.
But again, you know, I'm doing things that a lot of folks do as well. You know, I just got a call from my neighbor. He spotted a tornado. We're right by my house. My wife is at home picking up furniture just in case we have flooding. So that's what we have to do in these type of storms. And we're not immune to dealing with these things that come with hurricanes, the heavy rains. But got a little bit of good news here, at least for KATC. You notice we're in a little bit of a green area. That is better news. That rain band that was causing the gusty winds has moved off to the east. And this is what tropical systems do. These tropical rain bands come in. It's a stormy night. It's coming down in buckets, and then the rain pushes off to the east, the winds die down, and it's just super humid out there. I just stepped outside, my glasses fogged up almost immediately. So here we have our hurricane right now. It is just about moving through the Lake Charles area. We had a gust in Lake Charles to 128 miles an hour. We've seen gusts in the 70s and 80s over toward Jennings and then Lacassine. Also gusts generally in the 40-45 mile an hour range at the Lafayette Airport. So the gusts coming in, this is the worst part of the storm. And notice what we've seen over the last hour or two is this rain band that was so persistent is kind of weakened and moved off a little bit. It's a little bit more fractured, but we do have a tornado warning in effect for that. We'll get to that in just a bit. But Lake Charles, not a surprise that we saw a gust to 128. I mean, it's a 150 mile an hour storm. I doubt whether we're going to see any gusts to 150, and the Hurricane Center has gusts possibly up to 185. I doubt whether we see that, but we can certainly see gusts if you're getting a 128 verification at the Lake Charles Airport. You're probably getting some 130s across portions of this area as we go into eastern portions of Calcasieu Parish and into Cameron Parish as well. So again, we did get a tide report, by the way, down by Calcasieu Pass, which is as we get down south of the Calcasieu River, and that was at 9 feet. Right about here. So pretty bad storm surge, and that's not the worst of it. The worst of it is off to the east here, and unfortunately the freshwater outlet here down in coastal Vermilion Parish stopped working at 7:30, so we're not going to know what kind of surge we have until daybreak tomorrow, or we get firsthand reports that we have folks surrounded by water. But water's coming up in Forked Island. I'm certain about it with respect to that storm surge, and it's going to be that surge of water is slowly going to spread eastward across the region. Again, you're not getting a surge, but you're getting strong southeasterly and southerly winds, and that's impacting folks. So I want to show you this just quickly, and then we're going to toss it over. Still very intense rainfall here, and then we have this tornado warning going in effect for portions of Iberia and Upper St. Martin Parish at this hour. And this looks pretty intense, and we'll see if we can do some hand tracking here. I might not be able to do some hand tracking since we just did a reboot of the system. A lot of times when we have a lot of radar, you see how I use the system, it gets a little wonky on us, so better reboot and get it in good shape and ready to go for the next 6 to 8 hours. So we'll get that straightened out for sure, and we're in pretty good shape right now. But this right here that we're seeing looking pretty intense as we get into Iberia Parish, right between Lydia, New Iberia, seeing a little bit of a hook maybe here. So you're going to see very intense winds in this particular cell. And this is moving through St. Martinville and is eventually going to move up through the Breaux Bridge area. So very intense cell right now. Expect 60 or 70 mile an hour wind gusts. That's what we've been seeing in this band, far enough away from the intense part of the storm that is going to impact St. Martin Parish. So far, not too bad as we get into portions of St. Mary Parish over toward Morgan City, just on and off sporadic showers for now, but we'll be watching more heavy showers coming into Sycamore Point. This one balling up pretty good, so more maybe sporadic tornadoes or gustnadoes in this system as it continues to work its way inland. Again, you can see finally the eye making landfall. Now we do expect this to weaken, but don't see any evidence of that quite yet. Because why? Well, we're going over mostly coastal marsh in Cameron Parish. Now we're going to get over to land areas, and that's going to kill the process that keeps the hurricanes going, the latent heat of evaporation that you get from the warm ocean water. So this is going to begin to weaken, and now we can say the worst of this storm intensity-wise is leveled off, but the worst of it is yet to come for a lot of folks in western Louisiana, damage-wise, with more 100-mile-an-hour wind gusts in the offing as this moves to the north. Guys.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Rob. Let's get a sense of some more of the conditions in Lafayette and also how the Vermilion River is looking right now.
Yeah, Katie Easter standing by there along the Vermilion River. Katie, tell us how things are at this point.
Hey, so I'm so sorry. We just saw people out at this hour. Yeah, people. Anyway, but we are downtown now where actually we're not seeing too bad of flooding at this time or too many limbs. But we have seen a few branches in the road, and we are seeing, if you can see my feet, I'm actually now in probably about a foot of water. And then I'll walk over here to the car because I think it's easier to tell how deep this water is once you actually look at these tires over here. And of course, like I said, we're not seeing anything majorly flooding here in this area in downtown Lafayette, but you can definitely tell that the water is up over the curb and it is here on the sidewalks. And I don't know how far I can walk out, Darius, but once you come out here to the road, I mean, we all know how these things work, but so obviously it slants down, but you can still tell out here on the road there's still a very few good inches out here. So that is why, you know, there is a curfew in place, and that's why it is important for you not to be out driving at this hour. And speaking of the curfew, we have been seeing several cops out tonight or during this last hour that we were coming down here to downtown, and if they do see you out driving, they will stop you and they will tell you to go home, because that is where you should be right now. Live in Lafayette, Katie Easter, KATC TV3.
Well, we didn't know Katie moved, but good to see what downtown's looking like at this hour. Our crews, she's safe, and they're doing well, and they're driving slow. They know all the rules. But it's good to see a different perspective from somewhere else in Lafayette.
Yeah, I think they're there along Jefferson Street in downtown Lafayette. Some water on the road, and there are some spots downtown that are more prone to flooding. I'm sure businesses down there have been taking the proper precautions and putting out the sandbags and what have you. But hopefully, you know, Lafayette, this is also a test of some of the drainage improvements that have been made over the past 4 years since the historic flood of 2016. So, you know, just another way that Laura will be testing Acadiana.
Absolutely. You know, we talked about it after the 2016 flood, how there were going to be improvements in flooding all over. Flooding was a big subject that we talked about on many, many fronts. And here we are with a test, I guess, of some of the improvements, as you mentioned, that have been made throughout Lafayette Parish and surrounding parishes, as well as we deal with these rain bands from Laura.
And here we are, everybody, 1:55. Again, it is Thursday morning. Hurricane Laura has made landfall. For the past 12 hours or so, we've been keeping you up to speed on everything, all the latest conditions across the state, across Acadiana. And we are about to have a little bit of a shift change. Crew change time over here at KATC. We have 4 meteorologists in the building right now, which is pretty rare for any TV station around Acadiana, but also for KATC, because these guys really only see each other typically.
In times like this.
Times like this, you know, once or twice a year.
Unless we're getting together socially, sometime that happens as well.
But right now, our coverage will continue throughout the night. We want to remind you guys that we do have a whole nother crew coming in for a 12-hour shift, but for Marcel and myself, that is it for right now.
Yeah, we'll see you back here later today. You can't even say tomorrow. We're going to try and get some rest. It's going to take some time for that adrenaline to come down and get some rest so we can be in full force and relieve these guys tomorrow afternoon and get you through the rest of the day tomorrow. And on that note, Rob, we're going to send it over to you for an update in the forecast. Jim and I will see you. You get some rest too, sir.
Oh, will do.
Please do.
Yeah, right.
Maybe fresh tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow night. That's
tomorrow
when I'm
night,
going,
right?
Well, yeah, that's when I'm going to sleep. Is going to be Thursday
It's actually
night.
tonight, Rob.
Oh, later tonight.
Kai,
Right.
welcome to Thursday.
It's a fresh day. 22 hours to go. Let's go. I'm going to go ahead and do a full briefing as Daniel gradually works his way in. Did we get a river stage, Bradley?
Yeah, the Vermilion at Surrey here is at 9 feet.
9
and
feet.
expected to reach 13 here.
And crest expected to be 13. That looks pretty good, at least for right now, but we're going to talk a little bit more about what we're expecting. Okay, so we got landfall here of Hurricane Laura, and there's the eye. It's gotten a little bit bigger, notice, during the course of this, and obviously more ragged now that the storm is moving inland, but still very intense convection going on here across portions of western portions of Calcasieu Parish. Very intense winds here. We told you Lake Charles, the last observation, 128-mile-an-hour winds. Well, guess what, Lake Charles? The winds are going to go down to 10 shortly, and then you're going to have to deal with the other side, the other business side of this storm when the southern end of the eye wall comes in. It's been moving to the north-northwest at about 15, so you're in the eye. Cameron has been in the eye for the last 90 minutes or so. Well, now emerging out of that eye, and the winds are about to pick up and out of a different direction. They've been mostly easterly. Now they're going to be coming out of the west and southwest across the area, and that's really going to start piling whatever mound of water, that storm surge that has come in, that we'll see graphically tomorrow, I'm afraid. That's going to pile drive the water and continue to push it into Louisiana. And again, we were talking a 15 to 20 foot surge. So very intense convection right now. Northern portions of Calcasieu Parish, this is where the damaging winds are, right along and north of I-10. And that continues into western portions of Jeff Davis Parish and around the Welsh area. So some rough conditions here as well. Farther north and west, we have some strong storms in the northern parishes, but not a whole lot that is sending us up a red flag. My neighbor just reported he saw a little bit of a swirl in Lafayette right by Como High, and we do have a tornado warning in effect for this. Has been pretty much the roughest rain band over the last several hours, with numerous tornado warnings. And again, as we tell you, these tornado warnings don't last long. The tornadoes roll in and roll out within minutes or seconds. You might even hear one, not see it because it's rain wrapped, and it goes within 100 yards of your place, and then it's already gone. So you get a lot of that in these tropical systems. So some very intense rainfall continues. Upper St. Martin Parish, I did get a call from a gentleman in the Catahoula area, and he thought he was experiencing tornadic-like winds. But when those winds, those sustained winds, get up to 75 or 80 miles an hour, they are certainly quite intense, and it will feel like a tornado, sound like a tornado as well. It'll sound like a jet or a train moving on through. So you're going to see that. And again, strongest cells in around the St. Martinville area. So let's take a quick look at the velocity here as we got the hand tracking working again and see if we see anything. And we've had to reboot the computer, so we might not have that imagery coming in. I'm going to have to take a look at that, and we'll go over to that, make sure that's working a little bit later on. But velocity data not coming in at this point. And maybe that's related to one of the Dopplers not sending us that information. So we always have to do some detective work to find out. So here we have the storm making landfall. We have that eye moving now just about over to Lake Charles. Still some very intense convection on the northern part of this, back through Texas. Some cold cloud tops here. So some very heavy rainfall through the upper Texas coast and southeast Texas. And then we see that enhancement with that one storm. Let me just go back to that because that looked pretty interesting. You can see that enhancement showing up where we have that tornado warning. The colder cloud top showing up just in the last frame or two here. It was there, and then it just kind of disappears, but very intense convection. Still considered a Category 4. This is a 2 a.m. advisory, 140-mile-an-hour winds. So it's the beginning of the end of Laura, but still 140-mile-per-hour sustained winds. The gust factor awfully high here. Moving due north now instead of north-northwest at 15. This is pretty much what we thought. We were down as low as 937 millibars several hours ago. Now it's at 941 millibars. So so the pressure starting to come up. The storm is beginning to fill in, but at the same time, that means the rain bands start to move out and the wind field starts to move out. So we're not done with the winds, not done with the damaging winds. We're not done with the power outages by any stretch of the imagination. So here's the graph model. I think it's been doing a great job showing us where we are right now. And notice timing's actually pretty good. That eye wall right now just clearing the Lake Charles area. So this model, I'm in love with it, gotta say it, just because this really seems to have been dialed in over the last couple of days, and we'll sing its praises and watch it as we move forward. But any new model we have and a new reliable model we have, because we were dealing with the European and the GFS being in two different camps, the Euro out to lunch a couple of days. GFS did a better job on the storm track, but not on the intensity. And, you know, these storm systems, and that's why 2 days ago I said hurricanes like Michael, hurricanes like Harvey were tropical depressions or barely tropical storms, and 36 hours later they were Cat 4 and 5 storms respectively back in 2017 and 2018 respectively. And we saw that with this system, just another rapid intensification cycle that started about this time last night and then just did not stop all day long. And typically you'll see storms go up and down at times, but this went through its cycle and at the wrong time and made landfall with extremely high impacts across southwest Louisiana and up through central Louisiana, as we'll see this moving northward. Again, some very intense rain bands where we're going to see 100-mile-an-hour winds, and those lingering rain bands as we get farther to the east still being problematic, causing some flooding issues more than likely as we move through the wee morning hours of Thursday morning and then through the daylight hours as well. So some pretty intense weather here as we move on through. So again, this storm system will still be a Category 2 storm at this point come 6 a.m., 7 a.m. Again, slowly moving to the north and still spinning and still producing intense rain bands. They'll be producing damaging winds, and those showers, intense tropical showers and thunder showers continuing through mid-morning. The eastern parishes, this is the latest model run, so we're not going to be done with this system completely. Most of us are going to see a break, maybe even some peaks of sun as drier air comes in from the west, but we see the winds and what they're going to be gusting. We'll go through that wind forecast once again as we move forward, but again, still lingering tropical showers in the mix as we head into Friday as well, and maybe even to Friday evening. We'll see how this plays out. Now we're getting to Saturday and into Saturday afternoon, finally drier air coming in. So this must be a new run of the graph model, because I didn't even get a chance to see all this new stuff coming in through Saturday evening. So that is the good news. Drier weather, more sedate weather this weekend. We're going to need it because we're going to be dealing with a lot of cleanup. And again, everything in white here, this is where we're seeing the potential for 100-mile-an-hour winds as far east perhaps as Jennings. Again, the model may be overdoing this, but we've seen, we were showing you earlier, these are wind gusts maybe up to 127 in around Lake Charles, and sure enough, we verified on that. So we're not going to discount anything this model says right now, and watch out, still gusts in the 80-mile-per-hour range. These winds are going to pick up. Again, the storm is moving northward, but now the wind field is spreading out, so that's going to happen through the next couple of hours. So any tropical rain bands come in, and this is going to be, these gusts are going to be associated when you have those rain bands. If you don't have the rain bands, you're not going to have these wind gusts, so you have to have the rain bands, and this is just a model. As we say, one model projection, not an official forecast. So this gives you an idea when we track those rain bands, and that's what we're going to be doing throughout the morning hours. It's going to be radar, 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 and we're going to be working on that throughout the morning hours and doing those nowcasts. And then finally, the winds begin to die down as we get into the midday hours tomorrow. Some lingering gusty winds, but it really calms down going into tomorrow night. Now, as for the rain totals, boy, I think we're already at some of these levels. Of course, my wireless rain gauge at the house, dead. you know, that's the timing, but there is water in my cul-de-sac that tells me we've had about 4 or 5 inches of water already on the south side of town. So watching that very closely, and we'll be watching these rain bands on and off throughout the night because they could cause flooding throughout the night, and we'll be watching that carefully. Additional rainfall totals, again, we're saying 5 to 10, isolated up to 15, but what we have going for us in this storm is that it's moving along at a good pace, so that is the good news. The storm surge, we've been recapping that. We'll see what we have after tomorrow, but I think we're going to see conditions likely worse than what we saw with Hurricane Rita back in 05, and worse than what we saw with Ike back in 05. And for some areas, the water's not going to come up to its highest point sometime until later this afternoon, or maybe even into Friday. If you remember with Hurricane Ike, I can remember Erath and Delcombe, 24 hours after the storm made landfall, that's when the water started coming up and kept coming up. So you're not going to be, if you wake up tomorrow morning, hey, not too bad, and then 6 hours later you see water starting to come up in the street, that's when we're going to be dealing with that tomorrow and be watching that very closely. Flood watch continues for all of Acadiana, and again, expect over the next 6 hours or so, 40 to 60, gusts 75 to 90, anywhere in Acadiana where we have those squalls setting up. And this forecast looks like it's been a pretty solid forecast with gusts 100 to 130 west of Lafayette, and especially over toward Calcasieu, Cameron, Calcasieu, Beauregard Parish, Jeff Davis Parish, and Allen Parish getting in that mix as well. And isolated tornadoes also likely, and we've seen that already too. Widespread power outages. I'm going to go over and work the power outage map while we just kind of look at the radar here, and we can take a look just to give you a status on who's got power and who doesn't have power at this hour. And if we could go ahead and take the Doppler computer here, the old Doppler computer, we'll kind of tool around here and work our mouse around. Let's start with St. Mary Parish. We have about 1392 out. This is courtesy of poweroutage.us. Iberia Parish, 4,000 out. Not many reporting currently in St. Martin, but that's good. But as you get farther to the west, Acadia Parish, we're getting that are tracked. Of the 28,000 folks that are being tracked, 8,000 out of power, so that's roughly 33% out of power. We get into Vermilion Parish, of tracked roughly about 7,000 or 8,000 as well, so that's roughly 30%. Then we get into Jeff Davis, and this is surprising, maybe the numbers. Let me go ahead and refresh this just in case, and I don't think you need to see my email there. We'll close that out. And then you get into Cameron Parish. Just about everybody tracked in Cameron Parish is out. So there's only a disparity of 13 that is being tracked, and I would say they probably have generators. So as we look, and this is the providers that are watching this right here, and this gives you an idea. Let me see if I can click off of that and not have this up here. But of the customers tracked here, we're looking at a total. In Louisiana, you got about 50 grand there. You got 150 grand, 180 grand. So about 180,000 folks without power. And this is all courtesy of, and check this, poweroutage.us. You can get information from LUS, all your power, Slico, Point Coupé Power. You know, these are the ones that report, that provide. These are untracked providers. So they're going to have separate information. So this is not all the power outages. This is just from Beauregard Electric, Claiborne Electric, Clico, Entergy. These are the main providers out in the more rural areas of our area. So that's what we have going back right now. Back to the weather graphic system, and just showing you. Let's just do, Bradley had this up, and I'm going to do the same right here. Let's look at some of the tentative rainfall. And again, Doppler will underestimate the rainfall by a large margin by the order of maybe only being 50% of what actually has fallen in a tropical system. And we'll go just check this query in southern Lafayette Parish, and I guess it'll say about 5 or 6 inches or so. Yeah, 4.5. So it gives us an idea. I think we've had more than that. The highest rain totals down here in Iberia Parish, that's up to 5. But As I said, that's underestimated. There's probably much more that has fallen there. If the Doppler estimates 4 in a tropical system, it's probably close to 8. That is kind of my rule of thumb because the raindrops are so fine, the rain gauges, the water's blowing different ways, and this is estimated by the Doppler, and the Doppler hitting the raindrops. So very intense. And again, the worst part of the storm is still right with this donut right here in Calcasieu Parish and in Cameron Parish, right here. That is the worst part of the storm right now, and that is not going away. We do have that tornado warning in effect. Let's see if any come on, velocity data. You're not coming in. I need to make a phone call with an engineer for that. But here are the warnings that are going right now, and let's do some storm tracking as we look at the big picture here. And I'm not seeing what we want to see here. Oh, here we go. It's starting to populate. But I'm wondering about some of the other data that's coming in. But we'll get that straightened out. The radar data seems to be working. This is telling me that, oh, this is why Lake Charles is down. Okay, so the Lake Charles Doppler is no longer with us. So that's why we're not getting the velocity data that we want or need, because Lake Charles is no longer operating. You see the sweeps? We have the operating sweeps, and it looks like Fort Polk is not operating either. Let's take a look here. Let me make sure what we have here in our status board. But that is, that is a problem that we all face, and Fort Polk and Lake Charles are down. I'll check the Doppler status on a national site, but we're going to have to make do, and this is why we have multiple radar sites. We're pulling from Slidell, Houston, and Shreveport now. So we're not going to get the velocity data that we would like because the computer just says, okay, we're going to pull the nearest Doppler radar. And in fact, this is the problem that we have with Doppler radars in Louisiana. When 2 go down, we don't get the velocity data that we need over Acadiana. So that is an issue, and we'll have to work with that and see if that is anything that we can work with and have an estimated time of getting that fixed. But we do have the radars going around us, so we do see what's going on. And again, we continue to see these strong rain bands moving in. So I think we're going to be switching over crew-wise in just a little bit. Katie, are you ready to go to town, or Dave, you ready to take over?
No, you go on. You can go for hours.
Would you like me to go? I'll go for hours. There's no doubt about that. But I'm going to get ready to sign off here. I'm going to be tracking it and kind of updating social media a little bit later on as well, and keep you guys updated. Again, we're weather nerds. I don't know if I'm going to sleep tonight or not, but we'll be watching the storm closely and watch these intense rain bands moving in. But Acadiana, stay safe, stay off the roads. Do not venture out. If the winds seem to be dying down, it's just going to be a temporary thing between now and about 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning. So again, be careful out there. Be careful. Be aware of your surroundings. Watch the street filling up. I'm going to just have to be in touch with my family and just stay remotely with them because I'm going to stay over by the Hilton close to the station. So if things should go south, I can get back here in short order and monitor the situation as it moves on. So that's it for me, Chief Meteorologist Rob Perillo. I'll step in front of the key wall here just to say goodnight to y'all. But thank you for staying with us through this, and thank you for staying with us again through, I guess I'm not going to be on the key wall, but I'll be just the voice over Doppler. But thank you for staying with us, and we will be here hour by hour as we go through the next several hours through the day on your Thursday, because we are here. This is what we're here for, to protect you from storms like this. And one more thing coming on the printer. I always have to go over to the printer. One last bit of information here, and what do we got? Windows blown out of a furniture store in Lake Charles at 1:32 a.m., so glass blowing there. I do believe I heard that Stephanie Abrams was out there, and that may have happened during the course of that Weather Channel shot. 95-mile-an-hour wind gusts sustained, winds to 62 measured at Lacassine. So a 95-mile-an-hour gust in Lacassine. Boy, that graph model has been verifying. It's been solid as can be. We had the 2 o'clock bulletin. This is all 2 o'clock bulletins. I was just seeing if we had Structural damage to Capital One Tower in Lake Charles, reported at 1:56, so roughly just 20 minutes ago. Wow, 137 peak gust measured at a Davis weather station in Lake Charles. 137 peak gust in Lake Charles. So it's a rough one for our friends in Southwest Louisiana. Most of us in Acadia are pretty much blessed that we're not seeing this donut that you see over in Southwest Louisiana. This is where the worst part of the storm is right now in Southwest Louisiana, the core of the hurricane. And just look out for these rain bands. They're going to be troublemakers throughout the night. They're going to produce flooding, and we're going to see isolated tornadoes in here as well. Right now, we don't have any tornado warnings going, but again, this eye wall, it's cleared Lake Charles. The winds have calmed down in Lake Charles, but they're going to pick back up as they're beginning to pick back up now in Cameron. And here we're hearing the winds picking back up. We had that lull here. And what does that sound like? We got 4 meteorologists in here. I'm thinking 55, 60. Yeah, I was going to go 55 or 60. You know, we listen and we can tell exactly what we have here on the roof. So that was a gust of 60. So this is the most intense cell right now that we're seeing in Lafayette Parish, going up through St. Landry Parish. Pretty intense here. Let me see if I can zoom in on this. Yeah, again, right through Arnaville. We're seeing strong and gusty winds, and this is where we could see isolated tornadoes and where we may indeed see more tornado warnings issued. And again, they happen so fast, and before we can warn you about them, they're already past your home and they've moved on and they're moving somewhere else. So just stay weather aware overnight tonight. I know just sleep in shifts if you can, so somebody can be on the lookout in case a threatening tornado comes your way. You can kind of yell, everybody take cover, that sort of thing. Stay in interior rooms in the house. Get away from the windows. Make sure the curtains and the blinds are drawn in case you have debris that may hit your windows. This way, that'll be less glass coming in. So keep that in mind as we move forward overnight tonight. So from the Chroma Key wall in the KATC Weather Lab, this is Chief Meteorologist Rob Perillo reporting live. We're going to be turning it over to Daniel Phillips and Dave Baker and Katie coming up shortly. Guys, take it away.
Rob, again, very busy night, and we've got a lot more to go here this morning as Hurricane Laura has made landfall along the southwestern Louisiana coast. Tremendous amounts of rain starting to come through Lafayette. I was noticing just a road report, the West Congress right around Lafayette High is underwater, and a lot of the street lights are out in that area too, so you kind of come up upon that without even knowing it. So as Rob was saying, it's probably a really good idea just to stay put where you are and don't venture out, especially here in the dark. Good morning, Katie. How are you this morning?
Good morning, Dave. Yeah, I was telling you kind of the same thing. You asked if I had the same problem coming in, and that's why, you know, we tell people to stay off the roads, because you don't realize how high the water is until you're in it. You know, so definitely a good thing. Just hunker down and just wait this thing out. You know, you don't need to be out there right now.
It was really incredible to watch the development of Hurricane Laura with Storm Team 3 yesterday, and then even getting into the evening hours yesterday, watching the way the eye was forming there over the northern part of the Gulf of Mexico. And at landfall, a 150-mile-per-hour storm, a very strong Category 4. This is it's going to take a while for us to get the reports in. We're getting the damage reports when it comes to a lot of the wind out in the western part of the state. Probably we'll see wind damage in parts of Acadiana as well, especially with these small whip-up tornadoes too. But it's the heavy rain that I think we're going to be dealing with a lot of here in the Acadiana region. And as Katie and I noted, the roads are flooding, and we've also seen quite a bit of water in kind of ponding in folks' front yards as well. It's not able to drain off quite as easily. And with these rainfall rates, 1, 2, 3 inches an hour, it can flood things there pretty quickly. Back to the meteorological standpoint, it has weakened somewhat as it's moved a little bit farther onshore, and you can see there the eye right over Lake Charles, with the bottom part of the hurricane now starting to come on land there around Cameron. I'm assuming we've got some devastating effects from Hurricane Laura in those particular areas, but not just there. That line that you see there from about eye away stretching around to just north of Lake Charles there, probably some just tremendous winds there, and that does extend eastward. So folks over in Kinder and Jennings and over parts of Acadia and even Evangeline Parish also probably seeing some of those stronger sustained winds. But as far as Lafayette and points eastward, we've got to worry about those spin-up tornadoes, and that's why there's a tornado watch that's posted for the entire area there. As far as traveling, highly not recommended to go anywhere westbound, especially, or any of the local roads, because it is nighttime and we do have the darkness hours as well. Meteorologist Daniel Phillips was here pretty late in the afternoon yesterday as we watched this thing go basically from a strong Category 1 to a strong Category 4 in just a matter of a few hours there, Daniel. And really incredible over the last couple of years, some of these hurricanes that we've seen that have gone from negligible tropical systems to Category 4, Category 5, as Michael did back in, 2017, or rather 2018. And with this one coming on shore, very, very similar to what we saw with Hurricane Rita and those storm surges. It's hard to imagine what kind of waters are coming up there, even in Vermilion Bay and along the coast of Vermilion Parish. Daniel, do you have any more information on what we've seen with the winds and the surges around the area?
Yeah, so far, I mean, we've gotten reports. A lot of that has been out of Lake Charles, where we just had a report that came in at about 137-mile-an-hour wind gust. That was down over towards Lake Charles. The last little bit of information that I saw, you had Cameron or the Calcasieu Pass kind of sensor there that, as the eye wall was getting in, the water was already up at about 8.5 feet. There's going to be more water coming up out there, as we go through the night tonight. This thing doesn't just end at landfall. Landfall is always going to be the thing that everyone wants to talk about for good reason. That's how you figure out where all the impacts are going to be. But the storm continues on well after landfall, and we're here through the rest of the night. You can see the rain bands that are setting up across the area. They're all rooted down in the Gulf of Mexico, working their way northwards. For Acadiana, this is what we're going to have to watch here, these rain bands. And in some of the stronger cells, that's where you're going to get those 60-mile-an-hour gusts. Had one of those just roll through the station here actually just a little while ago. That is now getting up into the northern parts of Lafayette Parish and working their way into St. Landry. So that's going to wrap around here and then eventually getting up into Evangeline as well. Of course, the worst of the wind is going to be right along the eye wall here, which is now passing through Lake Charles. The eye now getting towards Lake Charles. And so those folks who are out in far western Jefferson Davis Parish, you're talking the Iowa area, looking out over towards Welsh as well, not out of it just yet. In fact, you're kind of catching the worst of the winds, which are rolling their way through there currently. You've still got a little while to go before things are going to start to improve. So just buckle down as best as you can. Some of these nastier winds going to be getting up into Allen Parish as well. Those 137s, that round of wind right there now pushing its way into Allen, getting northwards out of Calcasieu. And these strong winds are going to work their way all the way up along the Texas-Louisiana border. So this is just a system that has really affected a lot of people, and of course certainly feeling those effects here in Acadiana as well, some of these rain bands that are coming through. And those rain bands are going to be able to produce a lot of rain. We had crews who've been trying to get in and out of the building, reporting a little bit of street flooding out there already. Hopefully everyone, certainly sheltering in place. It's kind of what we had said, you needed to be where you were going to be by the time the sun went down and nightfall arrived. And part of that was can't really see what's going on. And now we've got the rain bands that are going to be coming through. And winds are certainly still very much a factor with this system. You're going to have obviously very strong winds up with this portion of the system as well. This is where you're going to get those 130-mile-an-hour wind gusts and the strongest gusts from this system. But once you start working your way towards the east just a little bit, will eventually kind of become a flash flooding threat. And unfortunately, that flash flooding threat is going to exist once we get past daybreak today. Once we get into the afternoon, we're still going to be seeing some of those showers coming through. So it's a marathon, not a sprint, unfortunately, with some of these systems. So this was one of the worst bands that we had seen here recently, working its way now coming up through northern parts of Lafayette Parish. Port Barre residents, you're getting ready to see everything kind of picking up just a little bit. That will roll on through, looks like kind of scraping up Ville Platte, working its way along I-49 there. We'll see if we can bring that down just a little bit and zoom in. Looks like, maybe having a little frozen screen there. But you've got poor conditions down over towards Abbeville. And remember, when you do look at the radar, the yellows and the reds, those are going to be a lot heavier in a tropical system than they ordinarily would be in a regular thunderstorm. So the radar kind of looks a little bit better than it typically would in a thunderstorm, but this is much, much heavier rain. Again, the radar kind of has a hard time reading exactly what's going on. And then again, you can see all of the intensity out over through western Jeff Davis Parish there right now. Now we're starting to see the graphics catching up. Just a little bit, ton of data coming into the computer, so there are going to be some lags here in the computer as well. And that's just, we've got multiple computers that are processing a ton of information, which we're trying to get out to you. So you've got a pretty nasty band coming up through Oakdale. This is 165 getting out over towards Kinder. Looks like a new tornado warning is getting issued. And we're going to see a lot of those tornado warnings as we go through the rest of the morning. I'm going to go over to the graphics computer, see if I can kind of figure out what's going on. Seems to be going a little bit of haywire. I'll send it back to one of you guys. We'll figure out where that tornado warning is likely going to be along those rain bands. Remember, everything moving very, very fast. Okay, now getting a kind of a look at it, I guess. This is going to be, that's the look at the rain totals. I'm going to go over to the graphics computer and see what's going on. Again, computer's going a little haywire here early on this morning. But I'll send it back to you guys.
All right, thanks, Daniel. Well, we've got a lot of stuff to bring you up to date with. First responders, I believe, over in Rain are already facing some restrictions from coronavirus. They're now facing the hurdle of getting those help, those in need. We'll take that story coming up in just a little while. But our teams are stationed throughout Acadiana, monitoring the latest impacts of Hurricane Laura. Do we have Matthew Torres today? We do not. Okay. Go 7. All right. Not survivable, is that what we're going to? That's the warning the forecasters are giving on hurricane storm, the storm surge? A9.
All right, so we're going to, yeah.
You go, Katie.
You know what, guys? We're trying to work through all of this. So apparently, a billboard company is literally slicing through its ads in Texas to get as it got ready for Hurricane Laura. Now, these images are from Beaumont. Lamar Advertising says that many of its billboards have a hurricane frame without panels, so crews try to remove the vinyl when they can, but if there's not enough time, then they simply slash it. Now, this is so the hurricane winds can blow through the signs and hopefully leave the structures standing still. All right, and
well, some of the viewers have been submitting videos of their experience with Hurricane Laura. See here in Lafayette, Maggie Viator shot video on Ridge Road near Acadian Village. She shot the video from inside her garage so that she would be safe. Now we've been getting these videos from our viewers all day long. Be safe, of course, wherever you